that practices entirely in the chapter component, local society, marketplace, and then also do some consulting. But I am here by the incredible wisdom, actually, of Bill Highway. They're a really cool group, and some of you probably know about them, and I'm not supposed to brag on them so openly, but I have to brag on them because they actually unify finances and data for organizations that have components, and do that in a way that really solves the inherent operational data and financial complexities that really impact our jobs as CRPs. So we're not going to say anything more than that. Just welcome to the Bill Highway crew that are behind the scenes making all of this work today. So here's the deal. The generational shift that we're all seeing in our associations, the rise of digital engagement, has really had an impact on how we can engage folks. And sometimes I think some of our chapter organizations feel a little bit left behind. And so part of what I'm seeing is, because there's this digital opportunity and there were already these existing components, is this wonderful coming together of the digital and the geographic, who are influencers, and really developing this vibrant influencer network for using our chapters or chapter-based organizations. This really empowers the whole ecosystem within your association to be able to move the needle to get more people involved and engaged. Our goal today is to share with you 4 examples on the screen while you're sharing on the chat box all of the examples that you have, as we take a look at how can we truly engage our components, our chapters, in helping us move the message, meet the members' needs, and make a difference. So let's jump in with a quick look at our agenda. We are going to talk about why it's important to involve component organizations in whatever practices and opportunities and activities we're doing. We're going to talk a little bit about removing silos, the advantages of local storytelling. We're going to give you those examples as I promised. We're going to talk about some goals and some ROIs, the ROI of that. We're going to talk about getting chapter buy-in, because it's great to have an idea, but if you can't get the chapters engaged in it, the idea goes nowhere. And finally, we're going to talk about, as we always do, here's an array of ideas. How do you turn some of them into actions? So we're going to drive in. Now, I'm driving the slide deck. I'm going to be driving some polls for us. So as you chat away, if I miss it, say it again. And our great Bill Highway team, Sarah Page and Charlotte, will certainly be helping us capture those ideas too. So keep talking, and let's go on to the first example. So got to start by saying the best place for us to start on this whole conversation is a couple of key questions. So, and I'm going to go through these quickly, but jot these down and comment on them in your chat. Are you currently using components to enhance your marketing efforts? Is there one thing the chapters could help you do better? In other words, have you looked at the chapters as maybe that add-on, that value add, that way that it allows people to do things a little bit different? I see someone said, I don't think people are chatting within the panelists and technical. There are only limited message shares there. That is right, Liesl. So if you if you go ahead and go to all, very good. Just helping out there a little bit with some confusion there. And the third question really is around this: what needs, pain points, wants can your components help you solve at a national level? Because that's where we get the ROI, correct? So it's important, and I think that this next slide, the reason why we're going to highlight this for just a moment is we know that you're going to have to knock on some of your coworkers' doors and say, no, really, it's important that we activate the chapters in these efforts. Just as the 4 examples that we're going to give you have sort of come to that conclusion, let me give you a suggestion that these are some examples, some messaging for those other team members. When you bring the chapters in, you're beginning to remove silos. You're allowing the components to reach a new segment of members and new members, and you're creating that collaborative effort across the association. It allows you to really embrace the local storytelling. So it helps, of course, the chapter members be able to talk to their story locally, but it helps you get that wonderful local flavor into all of your storytelling. So it has this win-win for the national or global organization as well as the local organization. It just basically increases the storytelling that you have, the stories that you have. It allows you to create those micro moments for a broader array of members, and it allows you to, for the omni-channel marketing. In other words, just have to bust outside of some of your marketing silos. Let's give you some examples of how we can make this happen. And as I do, I gotta ask you to weigh in for us here on a poll. Do you currently have a marketing campaign that uses the chapter channel? Let me launch this poll for you. Yes or no, do you currently have a marketing campaign that uses the chapter channel? So of the folks that are on the call, let's find out about how many of you are already using this. Now, I'm going to warn you, if you say yes, I'm going to tell you to put in the chat box exactly how you're doing that. So about 6 of you have gone down this route. Excellent. Definitely tell us what you've been doing with that. And for the others that are on this call, you know what we're going to do? Let's see if by the end of this call we can get this poll to have a change. Let me end the polling. Let me show you the results. We got about 19 and 6. Great. Thanks for chiming in. The first example, American Nurses Association, or ANA. We're going to hone in on their Fit Nurse Friday 5K. But what's really neat about this particular case is it talks about how an association took something that it wanted to do to engage a different audience, and then they were able to build onto that to bring their constituent and state groups into it. So this is very exciting because it gives us an insight. If we've got something that's working, how do we make those components perhaps be involved in a program that already has a win-win? So let's take a look at this. So first of all, the Fit Nurse Friday was a social media campaign that that ANA started to promote healthy lifestyle for nurses. Now, they started initially as this 90-day pilot. It went so well that they decided to keep it going for that first year. And it aligned, and this is important because how do you get resources in your association? It aligns with their grand challenge, Healthy Nurse, Healthy Nation. It also, of course, brought in that whole, because part of what they wanted to do was to really engage this millennial group. It encouraged, it brought in the whole digital strategy tier. So this campaign was launched by 2 millennial staffers in a cross-collaboration, a cross-department effort, focused on this new generation, this digital generation, to bring them in. But it touched in to an already existing grand challenge that they had, and it allowed them to reach out to a different audience. It was so successful in year 1 that they said, how do we take it to the next level? So one of the next levels that became the aha was just this, on the engagement part. How do we take it to the next level by including the state associations into this campaign? So they decided to build another component to it, and that's where the 5K came. So the Fit Nurse Friday 5K was actually a program that was designed to get people involved and engaged in a healthy lifestyle of running a 5K. So it's a virtual 5K. Didn't mean you had to go to a 5K. You could run your own 5K. But the idea here was, how do we get people that will get involved in this, taking their own pictures, building the excitement? And because now we're talking about local events. Remember, this was a digital strategy. Now we're talking about local events, nurses getting together to be engaged in maybe a community 5K. They said, this is a perfect way for us to embrace our constituent groups, our state societies and our constituent societies. And they said, very modest, in the first 6 months of the program, let's get 500 nurses participating by running their own or by running in a 5K program. Collectively, here's the ROI for this. They reached 4.5 million people on Facebook and Twitter. In 2016, they had 678 nurses. And look at this, in 2017, 2,244. And the reason why they were able to do this was they were able to connect with those state organizations. And that meant they even connected with non-members that were participating. pretty impressive stats. The way they make this to work, now see, one thing, and I don't want to go into all of the detail because I want to get through a couple of things, and there is a great article on the Bill Highway Knowledge Base that gives you some more details about this. But I do want to hone in on this. How do we get the chapters involved and engaged, and how do we make sure that their involvement is going to be effective? So a couple of things that they told us that they modeled in this campaign. They put together a toolkit that allowed folks to have this consistent messaging so that they had a brand for the whole campaign. This consistent messaging allows me to easily on social media see something that's worked really well and say, hey, I'm part of this bigger thing. But they also at the same time recognize that chapters have different states and they have different priorities. And so how do we allow them to customize it? So the toolkit was ultimately customizable to reflect the goals. They use the online community. Now, this was an opportunity for people that if I'm over here and I came up with an idea, to share it, to show the energy, to show that, that I'm involved, you too can be involved. And a great opportunity of don't get left out. The key takeaways were simply that if you use and share member data, it allows you to turn this into also an opportunity to recruit new members. That if you connect with non-members through the national and you show that this is a connection from the local to the state, to the region, to the national, you're helping bring non-members throughout and see the value of both the local all the way to the national. A key takeaway, and I want to emphasize this, and you'll hear this in a couple of the other examples, is that start small. Pilot the program. Maybe you get 3 chapters or 2 chapters that get involved. And finally, make sure that whatever you're doing, you're empowering chapters to run and take it on their own. All right. So let me invite you to do a poll, and let me invite you to do some chat questions. So tell me, what ideas or actions has your component taken and run with? And then let's do a limit poll. Have you piloted something that went really well or fell flat with components? So your answer could be yes with success, and I'm going to chat more about it. Yes without success. Not yet. So what I'd love you to do in the not yet, because so far we've got one person saying that. If you're saying not yet, put in the chat box, why not? Tell us what's holding you back. Because as we talk, perhaps we'll be able to come up with some solutions, some ways to help you turn that not sure about it into something that you can do. Okay, I love it. We got 3 people that have said with success. I love it. Brian, you're talking about helping chapters help with the retention process and asking them to reach out after our national does a few touches. Love that. Check-in calls 3 times a year with chapters, and we've consistently had 80% participation. So if you tell us, how did you get that participation? Love it. Yes, you need to build better relationships, Kathy. That's part of what we're trying to do with all of this. Okay, I've got quite a few folks. I know there's more people that can go in, but let's go ahead and let me show you what people are saying. Keep the chat going. Oh, a couple more people jumping in. Great. Let me share what we've got right here. So, we're almost 50% of those of you replied said not yet. So as I said, go ahead and put in that chat what's holding you back. And let's move on. Case number 2 is the American Society of Landscape Architects. They let their chapters take over Instagram. When I saw this piece originally in Associations Now, I got so excited. I'm like, tell me more. So I got them a call, chatted with the contact, and heard a bunch of really great things that we want to share with you in this next case study. So here's the cool thing. They already had a landscape architect day. So parallel to ANA, they had something going on. Now they're saying, how do we get it deeper? How do we take it further? And so what they said was, well, you know what? Let's get the chapters involved in this program. So what they did was they went out to their chapters. They have 49, and they offered that a chapter could take over their Instagram feed for one day Now, if you're doing the math, 49 chapters is more than 30 days in April. And that's so they cheated and they went a little bit beyond the month because it's a national month. But here's the really cool thing is that in order to do that, what they did was they gave chapters an option. They said, you can log into the account, take over the account for the day, or we'll just help you by giving you the Hootsuite account. You give us your post and we'll help you. So they did it both ways. However the chapter wanted to do it, they allowed people to have an opportunity to make it work within their own chapter social media environment. The idea was to celebrate the members' work. And you see in the past, they were kind of limited. But now with the chapters being able to really ramp this up, they got even more members being showcased. And it created this wonderful local value statement. Because you see, the really cool thing was that a chapter could say to a member, hey, you've done some really cool things here locally. Let's burst that out on this global Instagram feed. So all of a sudden the win-win was their ability to make their chapter story sign. But here's the cool thing for Hesla. They now had all this explosion of stories and showing that they truly were a global organization. It just really took the This Is Landscape Architecture campaign to a whole new level. So successful they're going ahead and doing it again this year. ROI, you bet. Chapters were able to showcase members. The engagement was they were allowed them to reach out to chapters who were not being involved with the organization in a very different way. It allowed them to be able to introduce chapters to a social media platform, some of whom were not really using it. It grew their Instagram followers, and it skewed sort of their ability to a younger audience. And it gave incredibly fresh ideas across the entire system. So it was a contained. So the ANA went a little bit longer and broader, right? It was a longer campaign. This was a contained campaign that built on the success of an existing campaign and created this really wonderful win-win opportunity with the chapters. And just an opportunity to show the chapters that, well, that they cared. Oh, Erin, our chapter program cannot pass the competitive nature to serve similar. Yeah, so sometimes that there will be some of those things that kind of get in the way, and you might have to tweak it. So one of the questions is how can you tweak this maybe so that it's not so competitive? Maybe it's an add-on. And finally, the last ROI, which I thought was really incredible, was they gave me hands-on social media. So it worked because they had some support. Webinar toolkit. The webinar was to launch the campaign. The toolkit included the great landscape architecture, hold in front of your thing. It allowed them 2 options to participate. What I thought was really important and interesting is that the Nationals PR and Communications Coordinator shared his cell phone and said, I realize that this is a big lift and I know this is going to be fast and furious, so let me be there for you. So the details, the devil's in the details. You had to do the important prep up front. They emphasized again and again how important it was to have that plan that was really clear, to have the schedule that was available. They had to have a POC, point of contact, take charge of the coordination, and the schedule had to be in front of folks. So any of these things takes a little bit of effort and energy, but the ROI was pretty tremendous. That increase to the Instagram, the reach to the new cohort of folks. Key takeaways: it shows value, which is awesome. It creates a campaign that we can all see and experience, and you're piggybacking on success. So, question, have you let your chapters take over your social media accounts? And then chat in the box while you're answering this, what do you see are the drawbacks or the potential opportunities for those? Let's go to our poll question. So, have you let chapters take over your social media accounts? Yes. Tell us more. No and won't. No, but I've been thinking about it. And you know, it's really okay if your answer is no and won't. I don't want folks to feel like we're saying you have to do this. And you know what what ASLA did was really make a difference in being able to get folks to, they were able to keep it a very finite stop place. All right, let me share the results for this. So most of you know and won't, but a couple of you are thinking about it. Okay, case 3, and these next 2 cases are going to be a little quick, because we want to share what their key messages are, which is, again, this idea of taking something that could be extremely useful for your members and blowing it into a campaign that can be used throughout. Case 3 is the International Mountain Bicycling Association. This is a really different kind of campaign, because part of what this campaign is about is the opportunity to create a new revenue stream, a new level of support for chapters in a neat way. Oops. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this. I love, just a little side there, I've seen some great chatting going on. Yeah, Nicole, I get social media and this issue will not resonate with our group, and that's really important as we're going through all of these. And this next one is a really, probably a very important example of this. Here's the deal. If it doesn't resonate, then obviously you're not going to do it. But is there some element of it that might resonate as we take a look for it? But totally understand what you're saying, Nicole, and there'll be others in there. So here's about the DIG campaign. They launched a national marketing effort. It was really a crowdfunding platform, the DIG campaign. The idea here was to promote and fund biking trails. Hey, so I know you can't raise your hand, but virtually raise your hand. How many of you love to cycle? I personally love to cycle. I'm not so much of an off-road cycle. I'm more of an on-road cycle. But this idea of funding and promoting biking trails is really, really critical, and it's important. So they wanted to do that. But remember that funding and biking trails is going to be obviously a local activity or a regional activity, not necessarily a national activity. So how do you create a campaign that takes something and really optimizes the local end of this? So they decided that if they had this campaign and they drew in their 68 chapters and it's across 31 states, they would have a win-win, because they would be creating an opportunity that would provide additional revenue and support for their chapters, and it would meet their mission. The campaign is designed to fund 500 miles of new trails, okay, maintain about 140 existing trails, put in some new ones, all kinds of things like that. But the idea here was to build this network, this opportunity, and thereby, of course, obviously building the raving fan base for the organization. And part of this was, you know, we're at the national level and we're talking and we're doing all this stuff, but at the end of the day, we need to have a good trust, a good relationship with our chapters and partners. And if we did a goodwill campaign that also supported them, then we'd have a good ROI on this. And of course, the idea was the national couldn't provide the funds, but they could be the group that brought the crowdfunding together. So this is a different example of how do you build a campaign that supports the mission of the organization and gives back to the chapters. And of course, by giving back to the chapters and building the relationship, you're doing what? You're supporting the mission. One other one that's a little off, maybe perhaps just a different slice at this whole idea of marketing campaigns. And this is the Institute of Management Accountants, the video contest. Now, here's an example of a program that was put together with the intention of bringing in the new generation. And in bringing in the new generation and to be able to actually, promote the credential. The neat thing is the overflow to the local organization. And this is also maybe one of these food for thought campaigns. So the idea of this Millennial video contest was to actually get a theme out of there. You got to earn it. So it was really designed to connect with, give a little bit of education, pull people in, take a message that had been, kind of old school and put this new digital kind of pizzazz on it. It was the idea ultimately was to showcase the benefits of this credential. What they were able to do was to boost the Facebook, and they were able to leverage members from councils and chapters and county councils to reach this. So this program started really from the national level, saying we need to engage younger folks in the conversation, and we need to put this fresh face, this fresh messaging around this credential, and we really want to optimize digital. And then in asking that question, oh, hang on a second, we could also leverage our councils and our chapters and our academies. So sometimes what we have to do as CRPs is be the voice at the table that says, you're doing this, and that's really cool. And do you know, I got a channel over here that can be part and parcel of this. I got a way that I can actually help you guys out. So that's what I love about this particular example, is that it really makes a difference in terms of helping people, your staff, your peers, your colleagues in your departments realize that there's this great channel over here on the side. So let's launch another poll, because I love the opportunity for us to get your voice into this. And my question for you is, could you see your chapters as a channel for social media campaign, partner to drive a healthy behavior, channel for new member engagement, a partner in raising funds, or something else? Type in chat. So we've given you a number of these ideas, right? So we talked about BASLA. This was all about driving awareness of landscape architecture. With healthy nurses, this was all about changing a behavior, getting the nurses to be healthy, to adopt a healthy lifestyle. For the our biking folks, it was about raising funds to move the mission, and for the credentialing folks, it was about new member engagement. So there's lots of different ways that you could do this. And I love the answers that are coming in. Let's give it a few more moments. I'm getting a lot of people channel for new member engagement. Absolutely. Yeah, Lucy, new member recruitment. That's a good point. I put new member engagement, and it does do it. It does do it. Oh, Leslie or Lysel? I love the name. Advocacy, absolutely. We're starting to actively share school counselor ratios. That is excellent, excellent. Oh, Martha, certainly partnering with the state affiliates to promote certification program. Love the idea of a contest, absolutely. So the voting has slowed down. Let me give you a look at this. So as you can see, channel for that member engagement, new member engagement is the highest one, but I love it. The social media campaign, that's a natural. And the cool thing, if you remember from the ASL example, part of this was also getting their chapters to get involved in some social media and do that share, which just brought more people to the national feed. Excellent, excellent. Okay, let's keep going. And, you know, part of trying something new with any of these things is understanding some of the drawbacks. So we had one drawback listed that I happened to see, which is all around, but social media is not the right thing. That's a drawback. So what's the counter to that? How can you make that positive? All right, so let's talk about, at the end of the day, if you want to get the chapters engaged, couple of things to think about in terms of optimizing the chapter buy-in, because I know, having been a CRP back in the day and currently being the exec director for a chapter of the PRSA folks and being involved with my AMC as managing chapters here, the chapters are doing a lot of things and sometimes with few volunteers. So how do you get the chapter buy-in? How do you bring the chapters to the table first and foremost? So couple of thoughts. You really need to encourage a collaborative culture. Do not make this a message from on high. You know, this is our campaign, you should do it. I get so many of those, even for the chapters that I manage. I'm like, do you know what our program is? So maybe the question here is that you're going to just launch it out and say, hey guys, we're looking to do something. We think this might be interesting. Make sure it's collaborative, get their feedback, provide opportunities for them to contribute in the framing of the opportunity and contribute throughout the process. And certainly allow and encourage focused feedback. It might help you change things. If you're going to empower them and to challenge them to take a next, you've got to be results focused. You got to say, this is what we're trying to do, and make those results something that's attainable. It's going to require, for those of us, particularly if we're working with our, say, digital strategy team, to adapt some management style. It can't be, again, this idea of we'll tell you what to do and you do it. But it really has to, you have to say to yourself, how the chapter is working? How can I change the way that I'm communicating or the way I'm operating on this today, or the way that I'm even touting success in order to bring folks in? And again, it's really about listening, being objective, and welcoming new ideas. And all of this will help you bridge the gap. So the interesting thing that we saw, particularly in the ASLA, but also in the ANA, was this idea of, if you provide this as an opportunity, if you build in the opportunity for professional development, how can you tie that in? Chapters are likely to say yes more often. So one of the things that you can talk about this is from the standpoint of providing mentoring and education to your chapter leaders. So one of the things that the staff did at ASLA, for example, was they had a webinar. They talked about how do you use Instagram. They gave it as an opportunity to really say, let me help you understand Instagram. Let me help you understand Hootsuite. So it became some mentoring and some education. And it's a great way to do this in a leadership conference. I just attended the NIGP Leadership Symposium, and there were lots of opportunities around the social media, but around effective practices. NIGP has a really robust education program that it allows chapters to take advantage of, and there's lots of conversation around how do I bring that to my chapter. This other thing is to encourage cross-functional partnerships. So one of the really neat things we talked about at the NIGP was how chapters were beginning to, I'm doing this, let's bring together the webinar, but have the separate conversations. So how do we, several chapters, come together to do an event? One group I was talking to, they do, I think it was every other year, 3 chapters come together and do a big reverse trade show. So it's really good just pulling the resources. So that opportunity to work across that opportunity for your departments at the national level to cross-collaborate, to work with. So what I really loved about the ANA, that was a cross-development team with a Millennial, 2 Millennial staff people leading that opportunity, but they brought in the digital strategy, they brought in the membership, they brought in the chapter folks, and they said, how do we work collectively? How do we pool our resources together collectively to make this a campaign that will win? So it was a great opportunity, really, for folks to make a difference here. I'm just checking my time here, making sure that we're working out okay on our schedule time here. So chapter buy-in. How do you guys create chapter buy-in? There must be some additional ideas from many of you. And I see that Liz was asking for anyone who has done a chapter leader conference about revamping it. And I'll just mention, Lisa, you might want to check out the webinar from last time. It was about chapter leader conferences, and we have some great resources on there. And I know Jennifer Steffen, who's done a fabulous job with her program, the NIGP, would certainly talk with you. I know Wes Carr and Lindsay Curry over at RAPS would probably talk with you, because they've done a fabulous job with theirs. I know FPA has done it. So if you don't get anybody on this call, let me know, and we'll connect you with some folks. And I don't know, maybe the Bill Highway folks could post the link to that webinar that we did. All right, guys. Here comes the part where I think it's the most important. You can participate in a webinar anytime that you want. The real question is whether or not you're getting stuff done. And I know we're just about at the end of our time here, but I'm going to run through these real quickly. How do you get started? Brainstorm ideas with chapters. great way to do it. Pilot an idea, tap the chapters as promotional content channels for something that's already going on, and finally repurpose and build on what you've already created on and worked on. Okay, guys, 4 ways to create actions. Now, I know that we've talked about a lot of things, and I know that we've got, maybe about 15 minutes left of airtime here, and I've been just rapidly going through here. So let me ask this question from you all. What's on your mind? How can you make this the best possible opportunity for you guys to cross-collaborate? How can you brainstorm ideas with chapters? How can you pilot an idea? Go ahead, let's put some information in, let's put some chat in and see if there's any questions. And my Bill Highway support team in the back, have you seen any questions that I've missed? Kathy, how do you address apathy? I love the question. I'm assuming that you mean apathy on the part of your chapters and components, but it could be the volunteer leaders themselves. It could be the members. So how do you address apathy? I think one of the things I've learned in these 4 that we talked about is a couple of things. First of all, it's got to be an idea that's got a lot of energy and craziness about it. I'll get involved with something if I'm concerned about being left out. You know, that whole the fear of being left out, FOMO. So I think you should use that as much as you can. So with the ANA, for example, after the first couple of chapters did it, the early adopters did it, the other ones didn't want to be left out. This was their opportunity. So the apathy might be find 2 or 3 that are really excited about this, about whatever the campaign is. Pilot it there. That's the value we saw in the ANA example, and also in the ASLA one, is that pilot it with a few and see how it goes. The FOMO should be able to kick in. The other thing is oftentimes we look at apathy and we think that's the behavior we see, and really it's the fear that I can't succeed at this, or you've got someone that doesn't know what they're doing and they're not going to go beyond that group. So this is a great opportunity for you to reach deeper into the pools of your local organizations to add that education portion of it, right? So it could be that we think it's apathy and really what it is fear. The third thing that really I think, and this is the true cost, if you will, or expense, if you will, to the association, is you got to have somebody on it, somebody in charge. You as a CRP, mostly, you know, you're falls into your job. And so part of what you have to do to make this work is you've got to do that cross collaboration across the department so that you can get some additional resources. But your components will get done what you ask them to personally do. It's like the volunteer, right? So how can you get beyond the email to pick up the phone and have a conversation? You know, how can you get additional staff members talking about it? If you get the buy-in from your digital strategy team, from your membership team, from your events team, you should be able to hopefully deal with that apathy. Anybody got, I'm sure some of you have dealt with apathy and you would love to chime in there and help Kathy with that. Come on, folks. Jump in with Kathy and and offer her some of your other advice. Karen, you totally ramped your training for this year. Have a call there, some chapters for comments. Happy to talk with you. Thank you, Karen. And CAI is doing some great things. The two of you, please do connect. That's going to be great. So the other question is about membership campaign approach. For those who remember, it's the HQ level or at the state level, but not both. So how do we collaborate that? So I'm going to ask the folks, come on, jump in on the call and jump in on the chat here and talk to us a little bit more about how you're doing the membership thing. All right, guys, we have talked about a whole bunch of things here. Will this webinar be posted as well? Yes, Carrie, it will be posted. That's the wonderful thing about the Bill Highway crew, and that's why I love having them being the person to to talk to you on this webinar thanks to them, because they will get it posted. And actually, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you guys for a little bit in return. Sarah and Charlotte and Paige and I have and Mark, we all have a great time chatting with you on these webinars. We would love to bring webinars that make a difference to you. And I'm already thinking to myself, okay, let's have a webinar on membership campaigns. How can you bring your chapters into that membership conversation? But we were also thinking that another topic that we've heard a lot of people say they want to know more about is, thanks Jill, that you want to hear more about is creating volunteer portals. And so if you've got a volunteer portal that you'd like to brag on, please let us know and we'll reach out to you, because we'd like to highlight some really cool volunteer portals. And then the other one, we've got an upcoming one that's going to be all on speakers bureaus. How do you give this as a resource to your chapter leaders? So if you've got a speakers bureau you'd like to brag on, go ahead and let us know. So if you've got a topic you'd like to hear about, let us know in the chat or by email. If you've got a speakers bureau or a volunteer portal or a membership campaign with your chapters you'd like to brag about, please go ahead and share with that, and we'll get with you and we'll make you a star on a future Bill Highway event. Virtual chapters, oh yes, Lucy, I'm actually working with someone right now, and we're going to have a meeting this weekend with a bunch of chapter leaders to talk specifically about virtual chapters, so we should definitely do one about that. Yeah, Jessica, good point. I think it's great to use the whole guilt in terms of being able to reverse that apathy. So here's a cool thing, Jessica, when you speak to that, you're saying, and for those of you that maybe aren't on the chat, she said, sometimes a slight guilt trip works, mentioning that you know they're passionate and it's an area of focus, helping out is great. And here's the other thing I totally love what came out of the ASLA and out of the biking ones is that, hey guys, your involvement in this is giving back to your members. Don't you want to give back to your members? Don't you want to highlight your members? Don't you want to make your members see the value? So Jessica, thanks for that. I think the apathy works a little bit. Lots of good stuff coming in here. Registered apathy for volunteer service, yes. Yeah, that's an age-old problem, and I can get on my my soapbox here and say that part of the problem is that we're not doing enough micro and ad hoc volunteering. But yeah, are there other webinar archives that I can find easily? Well, I think we should find a way to make it easier for you. So I'm going to ping that back to the Bill Highway team, and maybe we can create some more effective links. Jill, you're working on creating a virtual chapter for students. I want to talk with you, as we all do. So Jill, if you don't mind, let's make sure I've got your, I know we're connected on LinkedIn, make sure I have your email, and the Bill Highway crew and I can chat with you about that. So virtual chapters, Jill Murphy, awesome. Kathy, you have a good leadership portal. Yeah, I know. Let's talk a little bit more about that. I'm going to jot down some notes right here, so you guys will see me working here. So I'm going to call Kathy. You and I are going to talk about the leadership portal. And Jill, we're going to talk about your virtual chapters. Awesome. Keep coming in, folks, while I switch us to the next one. Compliance and dashboards, how to track compliance. Carrie, excellent. We can do that. And by the way, if you're going to be at ASAE Annual, Peter Houstel, God, that was a name from the past. I'm thinking about Minnesota. Peter Houstel from Mariner is going to be doing a session on chapter ROI. So you want to absolutely, if you're coming to ASAE Annual, try to. Anyway, that you've got an article on that. Maybe if you've got a link, you can throw that out right now too. Oh, Martha, great advice on apathy, identify and leverage a chapter leader that's excited. Great, great. Yeah, Lucy, we all want to talk to Jill. We have to put her online and be able to chat with her, right? Okay, you can find all the previous webinars. Excellent. All right, guys, it is 12:45. We still got time to chat. But while we're doing that, and we're already on the question slide, I want to just do a little plug here, because ROI, technology for chapters, effective practices in driving member engagement through chapters, and the future of chapters will all be discussed at the CEX, the Association Component Exchange, on October 26th, 2018. And by the way, registration will open on 3/19 for that. So keep coming in here. I want to see some more ideas of how you guys are doing collaborative marketing. A funny story, when we were putting this program together, I was thinking about, you know, I was a CRP. I don't know how many of you guys know that, but for quite a few years, I was the chapter relations person for a baking association. And we had, like many of us in associations have, we had a April month, and it was called Bread Fest. And it was the month where we sought to get a public awareness campaign to all the folks to come into your retail baker and buy fresh bread. So Bread Fest. So shortly after I got there as the components person, I said, we got to do something. We got to like put some spark in this. And we came up with the Bread Fest Bakers Bread Wagon. Here's what we did. We connected with Second Harvest, which at the time was the largest network of food pantries, and we create a program where we connected through our state organizations, individual members with the local Second Harvest food network in their area, and had them do a pledge for being able to bring bread that could then be served through that food network. What I did was, in the month of April was the time you sign up and did a pledge. Now, we knew the Second Harvest, they couldn't take a whole influx of all bread from the entire city in one day. It was really important it was sustainable. So the pledge was, I'm going to give so much of my bread product over some, such a period of time. The first time we had about, and I went back to find my records, I don't have all my records, the first thing we had about, I think it was about half of our chapters. The second one we had all of our chapters involved and broke records on the food donations. So it's really interesting that you can find a way to get your chapters involved. Yeah, I saw the question. It's Peter Houstle, Houstle, Jill, and it will be at the ASAE annual in Chicago in August. All right, guys. Can I do one more plug? Because I think doing plugs is valuable for all of us to keep our conversation going. I just found out that Bill Highway and Lindsay Curry with RAPS and Mariner are going to be putting on for ASAE Annual also a 3-hour deep dive session called a chapter hackathon. That's right. We are going to be doing a session where we're gonna fix all things about chapters. Sounds good? There's your registration opening on 3/19. You got a couple of roundtables coming up in this month. So if you are in Chicago, DC, Alexandria, or Reston, take a look at that. So guys, great conversation. I think we might give you back a little bit of your time today. Let me just recap quickly what we talked about today. Our chapters can be amazing sources for us to drive the mission and meet members' needs when we bring them into collaborative campaigns. We know it's a generational shift. We know it's the rise of digital engagement. We know we're trying to find a way to bring in millennial folks. And we know, quite frankly, that at the end of the day, that people getting together is what drives most people to be deeply connected to our organization. So when you take the need to reach out to new generations, reach out to different people, and you marry it with supporting the chapters and bringing them together, you can truly move your mission and meet your members' needs. So hopefully we'll see you at a roundtable coming up in this month, or maybe we will see you at next month's webinar, or maybe we'll see you at the ASAE Annual. Yes, it's ASAE Annual, the deep dive on the chapter hackathon, and hopefully we'll see you at CEX in October. It has been a great opportunity to chat with you. Love the chat box. Any closing words, put them into the chat box now as we find our time to say goodbye. See you soon.